Hey, great question. And I like you said, what is my love letter? Because I do feel essentially that the book is written in love to anybody who's interested in absorbing what's being shared. Because I believe essentially my message about healthy personality development and child rearing is about learning how to put love into action in ways that we might not be aware of. And the motivating thing for me in providing psychotherapy to an individual is that truly I feel love for them in that sense of agape kind of love where I want to help you. I'm invested in you as a human being. Everything I'm saying and suggesting to you in my book is to share with you what I believe to be a loving message and a loving philosophy that will help you. It will help you as an individual. It will help you as a parent. And nothing in the book will hurt you. Everything is said and shared to uplift and to provide a message that can carry you forward in a positive manner. And that was my goal with the book. And it's my goal with any parent that I talk to about their children and how they handle their children. That's my goal, is to help them to do better, to feel better, to share that love with their children. And it's the same with any individual who reads the book, is to help them, to help themselves.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have someone from Canada on the podcast, which makes me happy, and from a beautiful place in Canada that I love to go. Brenda's here. We're going to be talking about her book. It's a whole new paradigm for raising our children in the 21st century, everybody, and you need to know more about it. Brenda's here to explain the book, explain what she does to help people, and we're going to have a great conversation around parenting and healthy child development and all that here on the show, and I'm excited to have Brenda on the podcast. Brenda, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you, Dave, very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. Awesome. So we're going to be talking to parents. We're going to be talking to dads. I'm going to take some of our conversation and move it over to dad space as well. So for our dad space listeners, hey, welcome as well. And I'm excited to have you here. So let's start off first, Brenda. I mentioned you're in a beautiful part of our amazing country. Can you let everybody know where you are?
I am. Of course, I am in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. A little bit north of Toronto, not too far, but it seems far like right now with all of the snow that we have. But it's a beautiful spot.
Excellent. Yes, I love Peterborough. We have friends and stuff. We do some summertime activities up there near Pigeon Lake. Yes. So we're up there and around Omimi. That's a fun name to say.
It is.
Omimi. I love that. Anyways, it's a great place. Everyone, you need to go there. It's gorgeous. For me, I like fishing, so I love going up there to do that. And great people as well. So it's a beautiful place to visit. If you've never been there, Brenda will give you her address. Come and drop by her house, and she'll make you a coffee. So,
and the time to come to Peterborough, yes, is in the summertime with all the lakes and the beautiful terrain around us. Absolutely, not right now when it's too cold and too snowy.
Bring a shovel if you're coming today,
exactly.
And you can clean out Brenda's driveway.
That's right.
That'd be nice of you. Awesome, Brenda. So, tell us a little bit about, before we get into the book and your journey as an author. I'm on your website. That's kind of why I'm looking off to the left here while we're chatting. Tell me a little bit more about what you do and who you serve, because I think that's a great starting point for our conversation today. Can you walk us through a little bit of what you do and all that, please?
Yes, sure. I am a psychotherapist in private practice. I've been working in the mental health field for over 30 years, but I've actually just been in my own practice now for about 13 years. Having worked in various milieux such as public education, private education, mental health agencies, children's mental health agencies, and family health teams, which was my most recent job before I decided to break away and take the chance and go into private practice. So I work with individuals, both males and females. I work with couples. I do marital counseling and couples counseling. I do a lot of parent education in my practice with people who are looking for help with their children, although I don't usually specifically do therapy with children. I'm not a big fan of bringing children into the therapy space for the most part. There would be exceptions, obviously, but I'm not sure that they benefit from that. But certainly with individuals and depression, anxiety, personality disorders, life challenges, grief, anything that a person might be struggling with, as well as their past experience. A lot of people end up in the therapy room because they've discovered that there are things they can't deal with or manage in their lives, and they've come to realize that maybe, their journey through life from their family of origin on into their adult life is obviously a big part of the picture, and they want to tease that apart and maybe figure some things out for themselves.
So on my Dad Space podcast, I talk to dads. We talk a lot about men's mental health. And in November, we have the Movember thing where we're trying to raise awareness for men's mental health and physical health. And in those conversations with men, I've had some pretty deep conversations with people. I am not a licensed professional at anything, but just opening the door to have a conversation and make a safe place for somebody to talk. We always encourage people to come and see someone like you because you have the skills and tools to help us. But for somebody that's never worked with somebody like you, can you kind of outline what is this? Does it feel like going to see our family doctor and we sit on a chair and put on a very skimpy robe? What is it like to work with you? Is it
true?
I just want to kind of demystify
Sure.
kind of what happens when we sit with you.
That's a great question, Dave, because a lot of people, you're right, before they've come for the first time, they really don't know what to expect. And of course, no robes required, no derobing required. Yes, they would come into the office and have a nice, comfortable chair to sit in. And the beginning process, it obviously would be about me asking some questions to them as to why they're there, what has prompted them to think that therapy might be something that would be helpful to them, some general questions about their life and their background and where they are at in terms of what's going on in their lives, difficulties they may be experiencing. Certainly, there'll be some medical questions around medications, past medications, things they might have done or are doing to try to help themselves. And then a little further exploration to try to begin the process of ascertaining for me what might be going on with that individual and what might be affecting them. It's pretty casual. It's comfortable. Most people, although for the first time, they can be very nervous and very concerned and very, as much as they might want to do it, they might also feel closed off because they're not accustomed to talking to a stranger about such personal matters. But usually they get comfortable pretty quickly. And for the therapist, for myself, it's all about building a rapport and a relationship with them so that they can feel comfortable enough to really open up, which is vital to any therapist having any hope of being helpful to a client. It's that the client has to be able to open up and be honest and forthright about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what their experiences have been, etc.
Okay. So you're here to help make things better through conversation and support. Let's go the opposite way. What are some of the things that you're seeing in our world today that make things worse for people and their mental health and depression? Kind of broad strokes, but what are those things that kind of just seem to put people back a few steps where they're going to need support from someone like you?
Boy, that's a huge question. You're right. I would have to answer in very broad strokes. Certainly there seems to be a lot of, and I don't know if this is, this particular generation, if it's even post-COVID that's contributing to some of these issues, but a lot of people find that relationships aren't going well, marriages aren't going well, parenting strategies aren't going well. So many people overburdened today with responsibilities and the needs of providing for a family, working, moving forward in a career, spending time with their families. All of these things seem to be more and more a challenge for a lot of young families, but also for people more in middle age who are challenged with finding happiness, finding contentedness, wondering why they feel anxious a lot of the time. Anxiety seems to be, the word, I would say, of the last couple of decades, where so many people seem to be experiencing it and at a loss as to how to ground themselves, how to deal with that, and make positive decisions and changes in their lives.
Okay. Yeah. So the one thing I noticed in conversation with people as well, I get to talk to a lot of people through podcasting, is that we seem to have like an online life and persona, and then we have our actual everyday persona.
Yeah.
We want to have all this attention, but they're from strangers that we've never really met in person. And so we kind of try to live this life on social media and online, and we're lacking in true human connection. I know as a male in my 50s, my circle of friendships and the people I know and who I could call in any moment is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. When I was younger, my 20s, I had like a big friend circle. But life and changes and all that circle just keeps seeming to getting smaller and smaller. So there's less people for me to interact with in person. And when you start seeing that, I saw a video clip on TikTok, and there's a gentleman holding a spool of wire, and it's really getting down to the end of the spool. But it used to be, like 40 years ago, the spool of wire had a lot of wire on it. And he was having this moment sitting there looking at this spool of wire going, there used to be so much here, and I only have this much left. And the realization at his age that the spool of wire kind of represented his life. And he's realizing he has less left than he had when he started, and that life is taking this away from him, and he was just having a moment, right? And when I see that, I think of, there's a lot of people who don't have the tools to deal with that, right? Having your book, having time with you as a way to kind of work through things like that.
Yes.
So for those people that are listening and they're still kind of, I don't know, I've never actually sought out help, and I don't really know if I need it, but maybe I do, just hearing this conversation. Any encouragement from you just to go find that resource, someone like you to help them?
Yes, the one thing I would say is that very often when a person does seek out someone to talk to, a counselor, a therapist, it is the first time in their lives, sometimes, when they've really encountered someone who is listening to them totally with their interests at heart. It's often the first time that someone has that kind of an audience for long enough and on a deep enough level where the person can actually start to work through some of what they do want to work through. And just to bring it back to, modern day life, as you said, with social media and things, relationships are so brief, so superficial, so disconnected because so often they are online, that it is impossible to get the kind of depth and connection and reciprocity of empathy with the person in order to feel like you're being heard, or like the person feels you and understands you and even cares. It's hard in the brief relationships that social media provides to actually care, because there isn't enough time in those kinds of relationships to really experience care and concern and compassion and empathy from someone. So sitting...
And they're so transactional too, right? They're just like transactions between two humans. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sitting with a therapist can be the most wonderful experience of a person's life, particularly if they did have, a difficult background, difficult family of origin, maybe didn't get their needs met, as my book suggests. And if they're sort of limping through life without having had their emotional and psychological needs met, being with a therapist, sitting with a therapist can be the first time that they actually feel that someone is paying attention. And I've had many, many clients say to me over the years, if only I'd known how helpful this could be, I would have done it a lot sooner, or I would have been less afraid to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So as you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I am going to reach out. Obviously, we'll have links for Brenda's website and everything. And then we have a global audience as well. So people can kind of find someone in their area if they feel more comfortable with that, if they want to sit in person with someone. But definitely seek it out. Like there's great resources out there. And I'm sure through Brenda and her contacts as well, she can point you in the right direction. So I know she'd love to hear from you no matter where you're listening.
Absolutely.
I'm sure she'd love to have a conversation with you. Our podcast is Living the Next Chapter, and it's all around supporting authors who are listening to the show, and they're coming to this conversation to learn from you as a fellow author. They're early in their journey as an author. They don't know what you know, and you've experienced things that they're dreaming of by having a finished, completed, published book. So to the authors that are listening, Brenda, any kind of words of encouragement, apart from the content of your book, but just in the process of writing a book?
Mm-hmm.
Anything you can say to an author to encourage them to keep writing and sharing their story?
I can certainly say from my own experience that I wish I had done it a lot sooner than I did. I started writing the book in my mind over 25 years ago, and it took me that long to get it, on the printed page and to the publishing process. Part of the reason it took that long, some of the reasons are a little more legitimate than others, but maybe a good point for new authors is to say, if you're experiencing any doubt about yourself or what it is you have to share with the world, what your message is, what you want to put out there, and you're hesitating or you're taking your time because you're not sure, I would say everybody feels that way. I think every new author, regardless of their background or education or ability to put, the word down on the printed page, it's difficult. And there's really no good reason to hesitate. If you have something to say and you want to say it, just do it. And that imposter syndrome will fade as you begin to do it. And you will feel more excited and energized and convinced of what it is that you have to say as you're doing it. But if you're hesitating and just thinking about it all the time, it'll be harder to actually get started. And there's no reason not to.
All right. So take us through your book, The New Paradigm for Raising Our Children in the 21st Century. Paradigm, I don't see paradigms. I see paradigm. So I'm assuming there's one that you want to focus in on with the book. But where did the idea come to write this book specifically?
So the idea came on two levels. First of all, my own experience as a child, growing up in my own family of origin, and the particular dynamics that were present for me, caused me to have a lot of issues and lack of groundedness in my own life early on, in my teenage years and in my 20s, where I had to sort of try to figure myself out, and did so, to the extent that anyone figures themselves out. It's never 100%, and I think it's a lifetime process. But I did so at that time. But I will say that very, very early in my life, and I mean as a child, less than double digits aged child, I had a sense and an awareness of what was missing and what I was not getting and what was wrong in the emotional environment in my own family. And that carried through with me. And as I went into my adolescence and, had friends and met other families and was working part-time jobs while at school and things like that, I had this sort of meta-level witnessing of what was going on in human beings in their own development all the time. It was something that was just always with me. And I felt driven to try to understand it and to hopefully at some point make changes. And I'm talking now in my 20s. I was hoping to be able to figure out what was missing and make changes. And then on a professional level, sure enough, I did go to university, although later. I went later in my 20s and thought I was going to be a psychologist, started taking psychology courses and realized pretty quickly that academic psychology was just too somewhat behavioral and mechanically oriented for me. I knew there was something else that I was looking for. I switched to philosophy and theology and the history of psychoanalysis, and I started to feel as if some of the answers were there, pulling those disciplines together. When I graduated, I started working as a counselor and a family counselor, and that was in my 30s. And as I've worked now for the last over 30 years in this area, it became more and more clear to me that my experience was the experience of many people, if not most people. That what was going on in people's life, whether it was addictions or personality disorders or challenges with life or not being able to make decisions going forward, violence, domestic violence, whatever the problems were that someone was dealing with, it all tied back to the same thing. And so at one point in my working career in my 30s, I was working in the public education system as a behavior therapist, and I had an aha moment where I thought, everybody I seem to encounter is struggling with the same thing. The students that I was working with didn't have their needs met. It became clear to me. The parents of those students that I was working with seemed to not understand this, seemed to not understand what was missing in their family relationships that had caused their children to have the issues they were having. So the aha moment came, and I did start writing the book at that point. But life happens, and I would write a couple of chapters, and then I would shelve it, and things would happen. And anyway, it took me this long to find it. And in fact, then throughout those years, of course, I got married. I had my own daughter. And at that point, there was nothing more important to me than making sure that she did not suffer a similar fate around not having her needs met. So my own personal experience, my professional experience, my experience as a parent all brought me to the philosophy that I'm espousing in the book, which is that we're too detached in our emotional relationships, and that this is what creates psychological disorders and detachment in growing children. And so it becomes part of their growing personality, and they end up with all of the problems that we're seeing in society, I believe, is tied back to this.
Wow. Okay. Go a little deeper on the detachment piece, because there's people probably making up their own definition in their mind right now, what they think that means. But can you take us a little deeper on that?
So, attachment, we all know and talk about attachment, and many people have heard about it, sort of have some understanding of what it means. Not always a really good understanding of what it means, but attachment happens within the first basically 3 years. I mean, it continues to happen, but the fundamental time that is most important is in those first 3 years. And it happens through the connection to most often the mother, but also the father, and more so with the father over time. But the early neurological, psychological, and emotional underpinnings of a person's personality development is happening in those first 3 years. It's so important once you really understand what can happen there, is to be terrifying. Because a lot of things can go wrong. And a lot of things obviously do go wrong for a lot of people. Because babies are unable to talk, unable to tell us what their needs are, there's a lot of missing what's happening. And that attachment is what grounds us in our bodies. It kind of plants us on terra firma. I often say or think when I have clients who have struggled during attachment, don't have a good secure attachment, I often think to myself that they haven't quite landed on planet Earth yet. They're not really grounded. They're not in their body. They're not in their feelings. They don't really know what's wrong and what's going on. And that's because something in their attachment period of development has gone awry. And it can be what we might think of as fairly minor things. It doesn't have to be huge. It's not as if it has to be, a child who's in a violent or really non-nurturing family dynamic. It doesn't have to be that kind of a situation. It doesn't have to be that the mother is not home or the parents are too often distracted, although that is huge. It can be like the drip, drip, drip of water that doesn't really seem like anything but slowly erodes the earth. It can be like that. And so an example of that might be a mother who has some of her own attachment issues from her own family of origin that she's not conscious of, but is part of her makeup, part of her psyche, part of what I like to refer to the spirit. And I don't necessarily mean that in a religious or theological sense, but in a kind of comprehensive sense. Everything about us, who you are and what you experience and how you feel and how you think, all of that kind of, I think of as the spirit of a person. And so there can be something in the mother's spirit, which is part of her that is subtle, but creates a kind of emotional detachment within herself. Unfortunately, that is going to be mirrored to the infant. So oftentimes, if the mother has something within her own psyche that where she is somewhat detached, and she may not even be consciously aware of it, or she may be, the infant is going to pick that up in the mirroring process that happens neurologically in those early years. But it can also be something where the mother is more deliberately detached, too busy, too focused elsewhere, doesn't have enough time to spend in that mirroring process with the child, which happens with the eye-to-eye contact. So for instance, a modern day example of that would be a mother who might be nursing her infant, and rather than gazing at the infant and interacting with it unconsciously, and she's looking at her phone. She's over here looking at her phone. And that's absolutely traumatic and tragic to the developing brain and psyche of the child.
Interesting. Okay. So detachment, is that the same as disconnection?
Yeah.
Or are they two different things?
Absolutely. Same as disconnection.
Okay.
Yes.
Same thing. Okay.
Same thing.
All right.
Yep. Disconnection might be a little more, a better word to be able to picture exactly what has gone wrong. Yeah.
It's back to earlier in our conversation about social media and online and all that. It's like you're trying to connect with people that you can't connect with physically.
Right.
To the example again of the baby nursing.
Yeah. Yes.
You're separated by technology and you're trying to build this connection with strangers. Like I'm not sitting there with you in your office having this conversation. We're doing it virtually. And this becomes such a normal for us to do things outside of human connection.
Yes.
Like go way back when community really mattered and you had to live in community to survive. You needed the safety of the group, right? To keep you safe from all the nasty things that could happen if you wandered off on your own. You need to be in a community setting and physically with people.
Right.
I just find that more and more our culture and our technology pulls us away from real, true human connection.
Yes.
Right. And actually being in the room. I got back to the dads again.
Yes.
Guys who just won't connect with other guys and talk about stuff. Because, it's easier to do this virtually or to talk about topics that don't take you deep enough to even have a solid conversation and connection with a person.
Right.
We keep everybody at arm's length.
Yes.
I think is like a safety mechanism for us then?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that allows so much nastiness to take place on social media, because there is no connection. People don't really care. You're not really a human being to me. You're just somebody over there on social media. And I don't have to worry about how you feel or if this is going to hurt you, or do you know what I mean? That it's so easy to just be, for so many people to be nasty and miserable because they're not really having a human relationship with the person they're supposedly connecting them.
Yeah, there's a clip on TikTok. There's a guy, and all he does is compliment people walking towards him around their clothes, their look, their style, and he says something kind to them. And the look on the faces of the people that are walking towards him, when he says, hey, I love your coat, I love your hair, like, I love that hat. And the look on just the bewilderment on their face, like, did I just get a compliment from a stranger? Like,
Brenda.
you don't know how to process this.
Yes.
Because we're so in our own little world all the time. And I just love that he interrupts people's day with a nice, kind word.
That's wonderful.
And I see people tripping over themselves because they don't. And then it breaks into conversation. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm a designer. I made this clothes myself. And to get into this whole conversation, that would never happen.
Yes.
Had somebody not taken a moment to
do that.
call out something that they're seeing in real time.
That's a radical act of kindness. Just out there giving it out to be kind. Yeah.
All right. So as we buy your book, Brenda, and we're going to read it for the first time, I love asking this of my guests because I think it's a way to build a bridge between you and the reader.
Okay.
I'm going to read your book for the first time. It's in my lap. I got my coffee. I'm ready to sit down and dive in before I even open the cover. From the author to the reader, what's your love letter to us? Like, what do you want us to know about this book? How is it going to help us? What are we going to learn? Like, how are we going to grow by going through this exercise of reading your book? Like, what is your message to us as a reader?
Hey, great question. And I like you said, what is my love letter? Because I do feel essentially that the book is written in love to anybody who's interested in absorbing what's being shared. Because I believe essentially my message about healthy personality development and child rearing is about learning how to put love into action in ways that we might not be aware of. And the motivating thing for me in providing psychotherapy to an individual is that truly I feel love for them in that sense of agape kind of love where I want to help you. I'm invested in you as a human being. Everything I'm saying and suggesting to you in my book is to share with you what I believe to be a loving message and a loving philosophy that will help you. It will help you as an individual. It will help you as a parent. And nothing in the book will hurt you. Everything is said and shared to uplift and to provide a message that can carry you forward in a positive manner. And that was my goal with the book. And it's my goal with any parent that I talk to about their children and how they handled their children. That's my goal, is to help them to do better, to feel better, to share that love with their children. And it's the same with any individual who reads the book, is to help them, to help themselves.
So is it textbook based? Are we here to read from like a medical journal? What's the tone of your book as well for a reader?
I hope that the tone is very much almost conversational.
Okay.
And almost like I'm relating to you. It's not overly clinically, written. It's certainly not medically and scientifically. It's not a lot about research and what may well be out there already. It's very much written in, here's what I know, here's my experience, here's some examples that I think you will relate to, and here's how to go forward with this information in a fairly straightforward manner. I'm
just scrolling through while we're chatting on your Amazon page, and there's so many great reviews from your readers on your book. It's amazing to see that kind of feedback. I always encourage the listeners that are reading or listening to the show, and they're readers, and they love finding a new author. One of the encouragements I always give everyone listening is to leave a really great detailed review of a book, because it helps people like me who scrolls to the bottom of the page to read everyone's comments around what you've written. It really helps direct me as to whether or not this is the right book for me or for the person I'm thinking about that I would love to send a copy to. Just talk to the readers for a second. How important is it for you to see these reviews, to understand that people are leaving you feedback? What does that mean for you as an author to hear back from a reader? It's
so heartwarming. It's so touching. It's so astounding. When I read some of those reviews early on after the book was published and people were reading it, Obviously there was a little trepidation when I was going to go online and look at the reviews because nobody really wants to see a negative review, although that's part of life. But so I was a little apprehensive, but reading them was just so heartwarming because I felt like those people that did write the reviews got it. They read the book and said, I get it. I understand what you're sharing, and it's been beneficial to me. So it was wonderful.
And reviews can be very one-sided in that we leave a review. We never really know if the author heard the review or has seen what we've written, but we do it anyway. So I want to do something with you before we wrap up here in a second.
Okay.
I want to give you an opportunity to talk back to and respond to one of your reviews,
Okay.
2 of your reviews, and respond to the person that actually left this comment.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
So they're going to listen to this and go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
they're reading my review, and now the author, Brenda, that I love, is responding. What a moment. I'm going to share this with everybody because I just made it onto a podcast.
Right.
All right. So Christine left you a review. Highly recommended, she said. She's here in Canada as well. She said, such a great book. It is essential read for new parents looking to support the mental health and emotional well-being of their children. Couldn't put it down and read it in just a few sittings. Highly recommend it. So for Christine W., from Brenda, the author, anything you'd like to say to Christine about those comments?
Well, one thing that you said, Christine, that is really wonderful is you said that you couldn't put it down. And I was so hoping that I could write it in such a way that that's how the reader would feel about it, that it was so interesting and maybe so riveting to them, the information they were getting, that they couldn't put the book down. So thank you, Christine, so much for that, because I was hoping to achieve that. And I'm glad that Christine enjoyed it so much.
There you go. Let's give you one more. Nancy Collins. She also gave you an amazing review. She said it's a book for anyone who was once a child or knows a child. So let me think. That's everybody.
That's everybody.
It's a book for,
Yeah.
Well done, Nancy.
Yeah.
She says, Brenda Whiteman has gifted us with this empowering book. She lends us strategies that entitle children to realize their own potential and ultimate strengths. This book is a blueprint to follow, guiding our daily conversations, which permits children's emotions to be recognized, acknowledged, and accepted, allowing for healthy, positive growth. I highly recommend this book. Wow. So that's from Nancy.
Well, Nancy, that is such a very specific, and she hit the nail on the head in terms of what I was trying to get across to people in terms of how to talk to children, how to relate to children, how to have a empathetic and kind reciprocity with the child. Nancy, you obviously got that and you understood that from whatever I have said in my book. And I'm really pleased to know that. I'm pleased to know that that has come across in the book. So thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. I do want to ask you one thing here to wrap up, Brenda, at the end of our conversation here. I could talk to you all day.
Thank you.
I know you have lots of things to do. You have a wonderful cat there with you, which I love too.
Oh, is she there? Yeah, she's there.
She came in. Yeah, she did her little appearance.
You saw
there she
her
goes.
come in, did you? Yeah.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Dolce.
Oh, there. Oh,
Isn't that? Yeah.
It's a great name. Okay. So for people who want to connect with you, and I said I have another question at the end here. For people who want to connect with you, Brenda, and have a conversation with you, talk about the book, maybe set up time to work with you as well. We want to offer that. Where we go as far as a website, we'll include it in the notes for the podcast.
Okay.
So you can click on it. But tell us a little bit about where we go to connect with you.
Certainly, if anyone wants to talk with me or discuss therapy, they can find me on psychologytoday.com. Just put in my name under therapist and my profile will come up. And they can reach out to me that way, either through email or phone. And Brenda Whiteman Psychotherapy.ca is my website.
Okay.
So
excellent.
Either
and
way.
that we can find information about the book there.
Yes.
All your services and all that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the idea of a podcast because we get to introduce listeners to you and your book and all of the resources. But I also like to leave our audience with something they can do at the end of this conversation this week for themselves, for their family, from your perspective, from your book, an action thing, something we can take action on to make things better in our world. So is there something specific that from our conversation today that we can do to improve kind of where we are in life and kind of see a gain this week? Some kind of action item from your perspective. What could you leave us with?
Well, I'm thinking about where we were talking about radical acts of kindness and the example you gave of the person who walks up to someone and tells them something positive. In our families, children need so much more of that than they get. Children often get, don't do this, don't do that. Make sure you do this. You forgot to do that. Hang up your coat, do your homework, those kinds of things. Of course, maybe all important things, but nobody, in my mind, nobody gets enough positive reinforcement, praise, affirmations, little compliments or big compliments. And children, especially growing up, need that. Where are they going to develop a positive mindset about themselves if they're not getting that as they're growing up? If they're getting too much either of the negative or just a neutral environment where there really isn't enough encouragement and support for who they are, it's not going to be part of who they are when they become an adult. So radical acts of kindness with your children for sure, but also with anyone else in your life, because what you do for others makes you feel good. And sometimes what we do for others that's not so positive doesn't help us. It doesn't make us feel good. And so I would like to see so much more kindness and positive praise in people's lives.
I like that. One of the models that I kind of try to work towards and try to keep reminding myself of is wherever you are, be all there.
Yes.
And so when you're watching television and your kids want to play tea time and you're watching the football game, don't push your kids out of the way to see the television. Don't sit in your chair and your partner sit in their chair and you don't even talk to each other anymore and you scroll TikTok and share things back and forth by text and the person's 5 feet away from you. Like we just can't go through life assuming that everybody's fine, that everybody's okay. Like, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, put the phone down, shut the television off. Like, what's more important? You have 18 summers with your children, and then they're off. Right? You have how many years with your partner, your friend, your family, right? Like, could you get away from the distractions for a moment and spend some real quality time with each other? I sound preachy, but I just find that we're just not connecting as much as we used to. And there's a lot of excuses that get in our way for why we don't.
Yes, and there's nothing more important. And I really like what you said, that we can't go through life assuming everybody's fine. And I say something very similar in the book, that if you are assuming that your children are fine when maybe they're in their room, reading whatever, this could be a tragic error on your part. And you assume that at your peril and at their peril.
Awesome. Well, Brenda, I love having you here. I love how you approach what you do and how you share and explain it to us. So
thank you, Dave.
Thank you for making time to do this. It's a great conversation. And I know my Dad's Space audience is going to love hearing from you and getting your resource to help them be a better parent. And I know our audience here on Living the Next Chapter are also going to really enjoy your book. And they're thinking of someone while we're talking that they want to give this book to as well. So don't buy one, buy two. Yes. And make sure more people get all the information and the help they need. And go to Brenda's website as well. And the link will be in the show note. Make sure you go there and give her some thanks and let her know you heard her on the podcast and reach out to have a conversation. I know she'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So, and thank you,
Brenda,
Dave.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity. I've loved talking with you, and I could keep talking for hours too. So I guess we can't do that, but it was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. Again, everybody, all information in the show notes as always. Please go and support our amazing authors. And again, leave a great review. Thank you to Christine. Thank you to Nancy for your kind words. And thank you, Brenda, for being part of the show.
Thank you, Dave.
Again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our guest for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Make sure you go like, follow, share this episode to support your fellow authors. And a reminder to always leave a review every time you buy a book from your favorite author. It means so much to them. It's your words back to the author on why this book means something to you. That's one responsibility that we have as readers, to support our authors by leaving great reviews. I know you've probably forgotten more than you've remembered to leave reviews. So my little ask of you here as we're exiting out of the episode, to go back, go grab that stack of books behind you, put them on your desk, and go to the websites where you purchase these books and leave a review now. I know you bought the book years ago. Go leave a review today. Let the author know how much you love their book. Give really detailed information about why you love this book so much. Let's celebrate our authors by leaving a great review. And thank you for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for being here. See you next time.